The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to the show, brought to you in association with Levi Solicitors. There is a 10% discount on offer if you use our web address. It's levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. Wills?
Probate.
And?
Conveyancing.
Well remembered, Moscow. You're learning, aren't you? There's loads of other stuff on there, services-wise, legal services for both you and your business. You can book appointments online booking system, and you can get remote appointments now as well, so check those out. Part 2 of the show is the Wolves preview. Last year was insane. Can it be anything like this again, do you think?
I'm still kind of expecting some Leeds madness before the end of the season. I was predicting it at Chelsea, but I don't know, like, Grathia's thing is he's like the sensible, calm guy, isn't he? But I sort of think...
Can we drag him down to our level?
Yeah, at some point we're going to break him, aren't we? And Wolves away, there is a bit of madness sometimes. There was that game in the Championship, was it 4-3 or something, where Moet scored that amazing goal and the Leeds fans were banging on the corporate boxes and there were just these like scared-looking Wolves fans there. That was good fun. But yeah, I remember watching the game last season.
Was it a Friday night game?
Yeah, or I was watching it on the radio anyway. But I just remember my phone kept buzzing and I could just tell there was some madness happening, but I daredn't look.
There was a lot of madness happening.
Yeah, it was absolutely bonkers.
We've got the general outline of the game here, which was we were 2-0 down at half-time and the second goal went in 11 minutes into injury time because there have been so many injuries in the first half. We lost 4 players to injury in that game, which were Bamford, who was crying on the bench, if you remember, Click, Llorente, and then Meslier got taken off injured in the incident that saw Jimenez sent off for his second yellow card in that game. And then we got the injury time winner from Luke Ayling, and it was the archetypal game of two halves, if you recall.
And Christopher Claassen was a hero.
Chris Claassen was a hero, yeah. He
came on for his debut was amid much fear.
Yeah, ref was Kevin Friend, if you remember. We were 7 points clear of the bottom 3 as a result of this win. And from the BBC report written by Simon Stone, it says, after an excellent week, because we'd beaten Norwich, hadn't we, just before that, another injury time winner. It was Joffrey, wasn't it then, actually? Saying, Leeds' decision to replace the much-loved Marcelo Bielsa with Jesse Marsch is now looking like a masterstroke.
Now it looks more like a master bait. Ha.
Thanks, Moscow. So there you go. That was last season in the same fixture. Earlier this season, of course, we had the opening game of the season, which we won 2-1. Aronson, man of the match in that one at Ellen Road.
He's going to be a star. On
his debut. I'd forgotten that we'd gone 1-0 down to Podence as well in this one. Like, the new season kicked off 6 minutes in, and you're like, oh, God, we're losing already.
It was Rasmus being pushed by a gentle winger. It was the first bad sign of the season.
Was this when Rasmus got punched in the face as well, and it should have been a penalty?
No, that was... well, maybe that was this game, was it? But it was...
Sarr, was it, in goal?
Yeah, so he would have been playing for Wolves.
Yes.
He's the Wolves goalkeeper. Yeah, so maybe. Did that all happen in one game?
Yeah. And then I remember thinking we need to equalise quickly because this is not good. And we did.
And again, story of the season, Rodrigo.
Yep. And it was that on goal, wasn't it? That saw us win. Was the deflection that?
Alt Nori, who sounds like a keyboard shortcut, scored.
It was
an own goal.
That was the game where Click came on and changed it because it was the start of that second half where Wolves just had the ball on the edge of our box for what felt like about half an hour.
Yeah.
And Mateus Click came on and
because he came on for he came on for Rodrigo, and we had Bamford and Rodrigo paired together in this game, if you remember. Not necessarily both up front. I think Rodrigo was dropping slightly deeper.
Yeah, he was like the number 10, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But so if Click can come on and make the difference this weekend, we should be fine.
Interesting to note our back four in that game and see how it's evolved over the course of the season. We had Christensen, Koch, Llorente and Strauch as our back four in the game at the start of the season.
You suggesting we put them back in?
Well, Koch will probably be in there. Apart from that, Llorente, I think, probably going to be playing for Roma or not, as the case may be. Strauch, we need to address his hair situation. It's evolved greatly since this game.
It's not evolved. It's
devolved.
Yeah, it's regressed.
And obviously Christensen, as we were talking about in part one, not at right back at the moment.
But we have had, and it is a little. It's worth noting since Gracia has come in, and I guess Scoobs started it since Rashford's brutal, like smacking his ball into Strauch's face at Old Trafford. We've had the same back five.
Yes.
Just consistent, which is nice. And
is it not like something like this is the first time Firpo has played 5 games back to back in about 4 years? Something like that.
Yeah. So are we
And that's
saying,
not an exaggeration either.
do we think he makes it to the weekend? Is it gonna? Will he manage to do 6 in a row?
He always had that kind of vibe of a car that where you take it into the garage for one thing, they find another, and then a couple of weeks later something else goes.
But we have the. It feels like the one thing that's kind of working in our favour. We're a bit chaotic up front still, and everything's like trying to get Sinistera back and Rutter up to speed and Bamford fit again and Rodrigo fit. All that's kind of a bit manic, but it has been useful and is good for a relegation battle to just have your back five every game, same lads doing the same stuff, getting used to each other, cohesion, all that kind of thing. So Liam Cooper, only Coops, when he's if he gets some fitness with Scotland, might just have to keep sitting and watching, because I wouldn't currently. Ayling was run all over by Mitoma and whatever, and we conceded 2 to a very good Brighton team, but it doesn't look like a back line that needs disrupting at the moment, does it?
So since we played them last, Bruno Lage got sacked. I didn't realise he got sacked. It's only 8 weeks into the season. Game week 8 it was, 2nd of October. They were 18th. We were 12th at that point. They had 6. We had 9. And a game in hand on them. Because they went all a bit mad for a bit, didn't they? They had Steve Davis was the caretaker manager for a bit, and former Leeds player Scott Sellers is one of their sort of directors of sporty football-y type things, and they were singing for his head in that caretaker manager time because they couldn't appoint anybody. Because Lopetegui turned it down once because I think his father was ill, wasn't he?
I think he's turned him down a few times, hasn't he? Because they've tried to appoint him years ago, and he kept saying no.
Tried to keep him in the friend zone.
Yeah, he's finally gone, fine.
If I must, yeah. And then, so he came in on the 14th of November, heading into the World Cup break. And since then, they've taken, I looked last night, 17 points from 12 games under him, which is 1.42 points per game, which would work out to be like 53, 54 over the course of the season, which I'm sure they'll be happy with.
It was the start of the season where they were kind of just refusing to score a goal, wasn't it? I remember a friend of mine who supports Wolves said he'd never seen a team who looks less likely to score. And they signed super bastard Diego Costa, but he's injured now, so they've just got the super cheat Raul Jimenez, but he's not scoring either.
Yeah, well, they've not had a striker score in the Premier League for a year. If ever there was a team that can undo a record, etc., etc. They've really struggled in front of goal. I mean, like I was poking around, that Phil does the Q&As, like on the Athletic Leeds page before and after a game. I had a look at the Wolves one most recently just to see what their fans are saying, and the general consensus seems to be they lack legs in midfield a little bit. Who's their dead good midfielder who's old?
Moutinho.
Is he 36 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're lacking legs in midfield, getting overrun in midfield a little bit. Jimenez then therefore looks a little bit isolated. They haven't got a settled team and look a little bit organised in defence, disorganised, in defence with changes that they made. Because when they were at Newcastle, if you saw that game, he made like a load of changes, and we'll come to that in a second actually. He tends to make loads of subs. They made loads of attacking subs, got back into the game, but then he switched to a back 5 or a back 3, whichever way you want to dress it up. And then that invited Newcastle on. It's what Marsh did when which game was it where Marsh switched to a back 3 and we suddenly Spurs won it?
Tottenham, yeah,
and we threw the game away, and they did the same thing up there. So it doesn't seem to be consistent. But yeah, they make loads of substitutions is the other vibe. They've made all 5 in every game under Lopetegui apart from one.
Mateus Cunha's gone well as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, they're now obliged to sign him. They've met the conditions, haven't they? Which is like 50 million or something.
He's got no goals and no assists, hasn't he? I think he's got 1 assist in the League Cup or something.
Yeah, I saw like the comments when I was digging through the comments. It was only anecdotal evidence, but people were saying that he's not up to speed. Really with the Premier League, like loose touches here and there, and doesn't seem all that arsed about trying to win it back.
I mean, this was kind of very obvious when we were linked to him that he doesn't really score that many goals, and it was a ridiculous amount of money.
Which explains why we were after him.
Yeah, exactly
the sort of thing that Victor likes, isn't it?
So we got Jorginho Rutter instead.
God bless him, that boy.
I mean, all this is fine, but I'm not listening to your analysis of Wolves when we could be paying attention to whoscored.com.
I'm on the website now, mate.
And they characteristics.
Tell me about their significant strengths, if you could, Moscow.
I can't.
Why not?
There aren't any.
Well, that's fine then, isn't it?
So it's pretty easy to speak of. No significant strengths, and it is worth momentarily dwelling on that thing where they haven't had a striker score for a year. Because when I read that the other week in the midst of, I think it was after the Fulham game, and they still haven't since then. It still holds true, and it's we do seem to have problems putting the ball in the net, but we scored 2 against Brighton, and we scored we didn't score against Fulham or Chelsea, and we scored against Southampton. It's like it always feels bad when you're looking at your own team and then you look at Wolves and you go, fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
We've scored 31, they've scored 20.
Yeah.
Which is the second lowest in the division. Actually, Southampton have scored 20 at the time of recording.
So
Wow.
there are some pretty...
Some deficiencies there.
There's some dog shit teams, is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no significant strengths. And then they're very weak at defending against long shots. So it's going to be a Jackie Harrison field day. They're weak at avoiding offside, weak at finishing scoring chances, weak at defending set pieces, aerial duels. So we can do the trick of, I don't know who's in their defence now. Have they got a tall defender? Let's say Collins and Kilman. We'll try what we were doing with Brendan Aronson of chipping it up for him to go against Adam Webster. That was fun. So if they're weak at aerial duels, might give him a chance. Weak at avoiding fouling in dangerous areas. So that's good opportunity for...
Verba?
I was going to say for Brendan and Jackie to just stick it into the whatever the Molyneux stands are called. Although it was an overhit Harrison free kick that won the game for us last year, wasn't it? That was one of the beautiful things of the pitch side microphone as he sent the ball sailing out of play and you heard him going, "Oh!" And then he's still in despair as Luke Ayling chases it and puts it in the net anyway. So a repeat of that would be nice. And they are weak at, this is important, defending against attacks down the wings. So Gnonto, Somerville, Sinistera, Harrison, and we'll just put Firpo, Ayling, send them all out. Even give Christensen another run.
Just play wingers.
Yeah, loads of wingers.
I feel that might kind of undo our little winning the middle of the park plan that I was advocating before.
Leave the middle of the park to Jesse Marsh and his ilk. We're going to go full wing.
We're going to go around them.
Yes.
It seems to be that was one of the sort of anecdotal things that popped up in the comments by their fans, is that they tend not to try and go through the middle and play through the lines. It's all out wide.
Yeah. So, but they haven't got good players. So it's all right. I mean, Traore, I suppose he's fast, isn't he? So it's going to be the matchups if they go with their usual team, and I'm not paying attention to injuries. Traore against left and right Firpo, and Pedence against Ayling. And I think it was Pedence who was sort of shaking Christensen about like a rag doll in the first game. Ayling's not going to fall for that because he'll just fall over and win a free kick. Easy. And then Traore... Firpo just needs to... Firpo was switched, hasn't he? He's getting his booking in the last 2 minutes instead of the first. So he's wised up. So I have no fear about Traore against Firpo. In fact, I'm looking forward to it.
And they seem to have issues being like pressed quite high up the pitch. I was mentioning this before. When people were sort of concerned about the football that Grassi was playing against Brighton. You know, the crowd got a little bit restless with the sitting off them. I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if we take a slightly different approach with Wolves, because they're not that good at playing out from the back, according to the evidence.
Yeah, I am intrigued by that, because I think part of the attraction of Gracia was that he will change his tactics and adapt them depending on who we're playing. So it will be interesting to see what we go for. I think it's always going to be calmer than what we were doing under Marsh and Bielsa, but there's still kind of the option there of being aggressive still.
Yeah, this is one of those games where you look at it, and particularly because we're both in that pack of teams in the bottom half of the Premier League, I've kind of realised now that just about anyone can beat anyone within that group. So we've sat here and listed a load of reasons why and how Leeds United could possibly beat Wolves, but it almost feels like the toss of a coin, doesn't it? Like as to what happens to work on the day. So I look at this and I think this is a game we could win. It's also a game we could lose.
Exciting.
And it's a game we could draw.
Yeah.
I'd like us to win. I don't know how you're feeling about this.
I'd be up for that. Yeah.
And actually, thinking about this, there was a stat that I saw on Twitter. I can't remember who it was that posted it, so you'll have to forgive me, but it was one of the fairly major accounts. It might have even been like I think it was the Premier League themselves even, who said that the team in 20th position in the league has secured an average of more points per game than anyone else in the bottom half. So if you actually go bottom, you have a better chance statistically of... Yeah, it's changed that much over the course of the season, that if you drop to 20th, it could be advantageous for you in the next game.
Let's not try that.
We might be doing it. We don't know yet. At the time of recording, ahead of tonight's game against Southampton, who are they playing again?
The other lot.
The other lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go on, Southampton. Woo. win them.
No, we don't want them to do a win.
Southampton are playing the Tottenham. No, tonight it's Thomas Frank's Brentford.
Yeah.
Well, Brighton are at home to Palace, aren't they? So yeah, woo, go Saints.
No. How do you think it's going to go, though? That's the question. This is how we make fools of ourselves on this show, isn't it?
I'm going to go for the madness.
You're the madness.
I'm going to go for a repeat of last season, 3-2 drama. It was Click's injury last season where he looked like he'd been in a boxing match, wasn't it? Where his eye just swelled grotesquely. And it was also last season when they were arguing him on the coaching staff, and Liam Cooper just popped his head up and went, "Fuck off," which I really, really liked. And Click was just shushing them while his eye was sort of hanging out.
Yeah, because we don't have the drama of Large versus Marsh, do we this time? They've both been fired.
This is it. It's trying to draw Javi into these kinds of into our world, isn't it?
They're going to be dead nice to each other, aren't they? They're speaking a common language
at the start, but then 90 minutes of watching Leeds play. It is waiting for that one where Gracia becomes the irate madman that he seems determined not to be. We'll break him.
I was going to say, if there's any club to return to that point that can do that to him, it's us.
But we'll win, so that's going to be fine. He'll be happy at the end.
The Square Ball Podcast.